Welcome to this edition of Northwest Real Estate Forum. I'm your host, Patricia Wangsness. Our passion is to help you understand the art, science, and timing of real estate by bringing you relevant topics and experts with up-to-date information on what is impacting your biggest asset, your home. Joining me today is my husband, David, and my partner, and we wanted to discuss the neighborhood review part of the contract. Recently, we've run across a couple of issues with neighbors that serve as a reminder of the importance of evaluating not just the home, but the neighborhood. Thanks for coming by today, David.
Thanks for having me again.
So, neighborhood review. It's part of our contract. It may not be part of everybody's contract in different parts of the country, but I think it's important that we talk about what the neighborhood review is, and maybe it'll be helpful for other people.
It's really kind of an often overlooked item. The neighborhood review is to help the buyer check out the neighborhood, find out if there's some things that are going on there with regard to crime statistics, sex offenders, and they have 3 days from the date of mutual acceptance to complete their neighborhood review. And that includes if they want to go knock on doors as well. Check out, talk to the neighbors, maybe go there and park at different times of the day to find out what traffic patterns are and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've often recommended that they take the drive home some night from work so they know what the drive home traffic is like, and then get up a little earlier in the morning and then start out and go to see whether or not the traffic pattern would be hard for them for the commuting times.
Yes, and that brings up another good point. We recently had a client that purchased a home but was very concerned about the distant road noise from a nearby highway. So I suggested that they either at the same time travel out and back at the rush hour traffic to find out if it really was, and go sit at the home and sit in the yard. The house was vacant, thank gosh, but so it would be advantageous if they did that, and they still decided they bought the home anyway.
Yeah.
But at least they did their review.
Exactly, that's very important. So recently we've run across a couple of stories, some for us and some for some other professionals, that neighbors have impacted the deal. So maybe you could share those.
Well, one recently, the deal we have going is not even closed yet, and a neighbor called and said that there was a retaining wall that had fallen into their yard 4 or 5 years ago, and the sellers had gone to fix it. Well, he called again to say that the wall has shifted again, and that he would, he'd certainly hate to look at suing the new owners of the house. So we called the agent and called the sellers, and the sellers are going to do whatever they can to get out a geotechnical engineer to make sure that that's not the case.
Right. I think the sellers are going to they're going to satisfy the buyer, but sometimes a neighbor can really cause an issue that really isn't an issue, but they're just looking for a little attention, or they may have too much time on their hands. Then we knew of another one where the buyer actually was moving in a day early, and this was a family, and the neighbors came by and said that we don't want any children in this neighborhood. The walls are too thin in this condominium, and we absolutely don't want any crying babies.
And the deal fell apart because the neighbors did not want the kids, and the kids didn't want to have an unhappy place to live, so the family backed out. The seller also sued the neighbor for interfering with the contract, and that looks like they probably will win that suit.
Yeah, we can't talk about legal issues, but there are implications for people that decide to interfere with a contract. So those are important things that we know that should be. It doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, it can be really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And another instance, a woman was buying a house in a neighborhood not far from where she lived, and she went to do the neighborhood review on sex offenders. And she got on the King County websites to look at crime statistics and sex offenders, and found that there were a couple in the neighborhood. She became quite alarmed. So she decided to go home where she currently lived and do a neighborhood review where she currently lives, and found out that there were more sex offenders in her neighborhood than where she was moving to.
So there's lots of good information available. People need to take the time and realize that it's not, well, it's a certain time frame of 3 days. You could always change that, but overall, a buyer really needs to take a consideration for what it is that's around the impact of how they're going to live. It's not just the house, It's the environment.
Yes. And if they do not do a neighborhood review and something comes up afterwards that they're not happy about, there really isn't anything they can do because they chose not to do their neighborhood review and let it expire.
Exactly. Well, thanks very much for helping us out with that, and I'm sure this is valuable information for everyone.
I think it is.
Thanks for watching this edition of Northwest Real Estate Forum. Whether you're buying, selling, or sitting on the sidelines, keep watching for important information on topics that are impacting your biggest asset, your home. To learn more about this and other shows, please visit us at northwestrealestateforum.com. While you're there, be sure to order your free copy of the Buyer's Guide and the Seller's Guide for great ideas on how to get the most out of buying and selling your home. I'm your host, Patricia Wangsness. See you next time.